Gentle Fireside Stories with Kate Field. Hello, a very good evening to you. It's lovely to have your company. Before we begin, find a comfortable place to rest. Somewhere warm, somewhere soft, somewhere that feels like it's truly yours. Let your shoulders ease. Let the breath fall naturally. You are welcome here. Imagine, if you like, a quiet fireside. The soft glow, the gentle crackle, the sense that nothing more is needed. This is a small pause in the day, a moment just for you. No demands, no rush, only stillness, warmth, and the simple pleasure of being read a story. My name is Kate Field, and these stories are written and shared as a kind of offering, an offering of rest. Tales shaped by the Dorset and Devon landscapes where I now live and love. Tales of friendship and memories and little touches of wonder. Whether you're listening to drift into sleep or simply to settle your thoughts, I am glad you're here. Take a slow breath. Let the day soften. Give yourself a few moments now to relax. Feel the tension in your body and gently let it go. Breathe gently. This time is for you. Tonight's story returns us to the Dorset coast, where Louisa and her small boat slip in and out of quiet adventures. These stories follow her life, her lifelong friendship with Martha, and the gentle discoveries found in coves, cupboards, letters, and the soft corners of memory. Each tale stands alone, but together they weave a shoreline of companionship, small joys, and moments that deepen with the turning of the tide. So settle in, breathe a little more slowly, and join me for another story from the water's edge. This evening's story is The Gentle Voyage. A quiet day's journey westward, where Louisa and Martha discover that the richest adventures are often the ones taken closer to home. My boat has adventures, but not the grand kind. My adventures are on the doorstep. We travel along our bit of the coast, just to the next town or village, like going from Lyme Regis to Charmouth or Bridport to Burton Bradstock. Sometimes we sail further west into Devon or even Cornwall, but only if the weather is fine. My boat has history. It was once owned by a woman and her dog, and she sailed with friends like me. When she sold me her boat, she gave me a blanket knitted by her mother and an old sou'wester, and her pots and pans and an old kettle for making tea and hot chocolate. She had lived a life of hustle and bustle in the big city somewhere, but her boat was her sanctuary, and here in Lyme she stayed, living out her older years by the sea with her dog and her boat. My boat now, full of history and memory. The morning began pale and pearled, a thin veil of mist clinging to the harbour. I woke early, drawn by the promise of calm water and soft light, the kind of morning where even the gulls sound half asleep. The sea at Lyme stretched like worn silk, brushed with silver. I made tea on the little stove, the kettle purring as the harbour stirred awake. There was comfort in the familiar creaks of ropes, the clatter of masts, and the faint smell of salt and diesel. By the time Martha arrived, the sun had begun to find its way through the haze. She came down the slipway in her wide-brimmed hat, balancing a basket and wearing a grin that meant she had overpacked again. "I've bought bread, cheese, and something you'll either love or hate," she announced. "What's that?" "Beetroot hummus. Don't look at me like that. It's good for the circulation." Martha had been my companion on more small adventures than I can count, Painting trips, spontaneous picnics, the odd rainy ramble when we'd swore we'd only walk to the post box, but ended up 5 miles along the coast. She's the kind of friend who remembers what soup you like, but never remembers the tide times. We cast off just after 8, the harbour quiet behind us. The cliffs behind the Cobb were already warming to a gentle gold, gulls tracing slow circles above them. The sea held that rare calm, not flat exactly, but breathing evenly. Our plan, if you could call it that, was to travel west towards Sidmouth. Not in any rush, perhaps stop near Branscombe for lunch, maybe drift a while if the wind stayed kind. Out past Black Ven, the coastline began to unfold like an old storybook, each headland another page turned. The air smelled of salt and something sweet like the promise of summer. Martha perched near the bow, hair whipping about, eyes half closed. "This is it," she said softly. "This is what people mean when they talk about freedom. Not flying or climbing mountains, just this." I nodded. Yes, ordinary freedom, the kind you can taste. We passed a small fishing boat, the men aboard raising a hand in greeting. The sea sparkled around them, and I thought how lucky they were, out here each day, living by weather and tide rather than clock and calendar. But then I remembered that sometimes the weather can turn. So perhaps they just lived out here because this is where their heart was. By late morning, the mist had lifted entirely. We brewed coffee, strong, slightly burnt as always, and we ate hunks of bread and butter, soft from the warmth. The world felt suspended. No sound but the boat's gentle slap against the waves, and the occasional laughter that came for no reason at all. Between Seaton and Beer, the cliffs rose higher, layered with rust and cream like old parchment. We dropped anchor in a quiet cove where the only company was a cormorant drying its wings. Martha trailed her fingers in the water, tracing little ripples. "Sometimes I think," she said, "that we underestimate how much joy can fit into a small day." I smiled. "You're right. Everyone's chasing something big. I'm quite content with small." She nodded, half listening to the sea. "Small, but not empty." After lunch, the notorious beetroot hummus, which proved surprisingly good, we sat in companionable silence. The water lapped gently against the hull, and I thought of the woman who owned the boat before me. I imagined her sitting here too, perhaps with her dog, watching this same light shift across the same cliffs. How many cups of tea, how many unspoken thoughts had drifted over these waters before ours. The afternoon brought a soft wind from the southwest. We lifted anchor and let it carry us slowly towards Sidmouth. The horizon blurred into that dreamy blue where sea and sky seemed to shake hands. Martha read aloud from a small book of poems she'd bought. Mary Oliver, of course. She says, "What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" I laughed. "Have soup, sail to Sidmouth, and watch the light change." Martha grinned. "Exactly." As we neared Sidmouth, the red cliffs deepened in colour, glowing like embers under the lowering sun. It felt almost ceremonial, as if the day were bowing to its own ending. We moored just beyond the harbour wall, and the world hushed into that exquisite stillness before evening settles. We poured the last of the coffee, cold by then, and sat watching the horizon fade. A small fishing boat passed us, its lantern flickering. Somewhere on shore, someone was playing a saxophone. The notes floated out over the water, sweet and melancholy. Martha broke the silence. "You know, I think this is how I'd like to live the rest of my life. Not chasing anything, just collecting days like this." "You've already started," I said. So have you. The sky turned mauve and then indigo, the first star trembling into view. The tide nudged us gently, as if to remind us of its quiet authority. We didn't rush to go back. The night air wrapped itself around us, soft and cool. I thought of all the times I'd told myself I'd do things later. Later, when I had more time, when the weather was better, when life slowed down. But perhaps later never really comes. Perhaps it's only ever now. When we finally turned for home, the sea carried us as if it too understood the pleasure of unhurried return. The boat hummed its steady tune. The cliffs glowed faintly in the moonlight. And Martha began to hum a little tune, something old, something contented. By the time we reached Lyme, the harbour lights blinked like friendly eyes. The day folded in on itself, complete. We tied up the boat, tidied the mugs, and wrapped ourselves in blankets for one last cup of tea. Steam rose in small curls against the night. Martha leaned back and smiled. "Do you realise," she said, "we've been out all day and done absolutely nothing of consequence?" I laughed. "I know. Isn't it perfect?" The sea lapped softly against the hull. The stars mirrored faintly in the dark water, and for a moment, just a small, shining moment, life felt full enough to spill over. The end. Thank you for sharing this quiet moment with me. I hope Louisa's world, the sea, the boat, and the steady thread of friendship has brought you a little calm this evening. When you're ready for another gentle tale, you will always find one waiting here by the fireside. Until then, rest well, breathe deeply, and may the tide carry you softly into sleep.